welcome everybody. Sometimes on a rainy, where's my light? I guess there. So sometimes on a rainy Sunday morning, you just got to start off with a little honky-tonk music. So we're glad you're here with us this morning. Coming up this Thursday and Friday here in the building, we have we'll be a host site for the Global Leadership Summit. If you missed the invitations to that, we wanted you to have one more invite to come join us for that. So listen to this invite from Greg Groeschel.
Days away from the very best leadership event of the year, the Global Leadership Summit on August the 4th and the 5th. And I'm inviting you and urging you to join me and thousands of growth-minded, change-driven, and hope-filled men and women just like you. We know that everyone has influence, and what we want to do is we want to equip you with the best insights from scientists and thought leaders and executives and innovators to lead right where you are, because your leadership matters. Developing your leadership skills, you know, it doesn't just benefit you and your family, but it benefits those that you lead and those that you love. Get your tickets. Hey, be there, because we know everyone wins when the leader gets better.
So there's still room for that. If you're in get back to school mode, or if the fall comes, you start to think about learning and stuff, this is a couple days to set aside and learn from a bunch of smart people, including, I think, Ron Howard was a last-minute ad. So if you ever want to learn how Opie made it big, you can come learn about that on Thursday and Friday. Also, just another thing going on, you probably saw the big standout there. Last week, a bunch of you took backpacks home. You ruined the opportunity for the 11 o'clock service to serve because you took all the backpacks, and that's awesome. But there's more backpacks popping up. And they went and just bought a bunch of school supplies at the 11 o'clock service. So we'll be filling those up. And hopefully if you have one, if you took one, make sure to bring it back to us by next Sunday. One of the things we've been doing, this is our boring series. Hopefully it hasn't been, but we've been calling it the boring series. And a part of that is this invitation we've been giving you to look up, right? That might just be personal, that you have to look up from your phone. I personally made a challenge that my screen time would go down every week, and I got 3 out of the 4 weeks. I held true to that. So I've personally been trying to have like a little bit less screens in my life. We tried to give you ideas, ways to look up and see each other, ways to find community, ways to see the sacred around you more often. That calendar will stay up online, because some of the things that are on there are groups that are meeting here, they're kids things, they're student things that are happening all the time. And they're just our hope that every once in a while you'll feel that pull towards something else. And so you can still learn more about that at southbrook.com/lookup. If you want to join in, that'll be through the rest of the summer that we hope you'll play along with us. Now, we are going to talk today about friendship. And one of the things we're going to talk about is that we sometimes think that we can just kind of do life on our own, right? But God builds us for other people. One of the ways we see that is in singing together. Like, I don't know if you I grew up going to church where they would tell you that this moment of singing together is just about you and God. Anybody ever hear, like, it's just you and God? Just picture you and God in the room. And I always just thought that was silly, because there's clearly a lot of other people in the room. I can see them. And in fact, what I found growing up is that it was richer to me that there were other people in the room. That was a part of it, that there were Sundays I would come in and not feel like singing, but somebody else was singing for me. In the Psalms, it talks about this call we have to proclaim the faithfulness of God in the great assembly, that one of the things we're doing is certainly singing and praising God, but it's also singing on behalf of each other. That maybe this week you come in and you have a lot of things you're ready to thank God for. Maybe you come in and you're not so sure, but maybe somebody in the room can lift you up with their voice. So we also have other ways. We haven't mentioned that for a while, but offering is another way that we have to be more together than we are apart. So at the end of the service, you can do that. You can do it online anytime. But hopefully the picture of the church that we have given over these weeks together is one of the things that brings us closer to abundant life. So let's stand up and sing about that together.
Hey, along with Alexis and Reagan, my name is John, and we're glad you're here. Let's worship together. Let's sing. Come on. When I feel the fear come, I won't run away, even in valleys. You're Your presence is enough when I feel the shaking. I will stand my ground. Oh, your presence is enough. You are with me. Father, you're for me. And fear will never conquer me. 'Cause I belong to Jesus. I'm never alone. Oh, I'm never abandoned. Oh, fear you'll never conquer me. 'Cause I belong to Jesus. When I feel the pressure, I won't run away, even in tension. Your presence is enough when I'm in the mystery. Oh, I will stand my ground. My God, you are enough. You are with me. Oh, Father, you're for me. And fear will never conquer me. 'Cause I belong to Jesus. I'm never alone. Oh, I'm never abandoned. Fear will never conquer me. 'Cause I belong to Jesus. When the rain fell, when the floods came, when the wind blew, I was okay. You were right here. You're in every step I take. When the night falls, when my heart aches, if I stumble, I'm in okay. You'll be right here. You're in every step I take. You're my shepherd, you're my keeper, you're my life provider, my protector. You surround me, you're in every step I take. You're the goodness, you're the constant, you're my first love and my future. You surround me, you're in every step I take. You are with me, and Father, you're for me. Fear will never conquer me. 'Cause I belong to Jesus. Oh, I'm never alone. Oh, I'm never abandoned. And fear will never conquer me. 'Cause I belong to Jesus. Even though I walk through the valley in the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. You are with me, and Father, you're for me. Fear will never conquer me. 'Cause I belong to Jesus.
Where can I run? Where can I hide? That you're not there. And you know my heart, all of my thoughts. You understand. Sing this with me. I can't outrun your love. I can't outrun your love. No, we can't. I can't outrun your Your love, it surrounds me. I can't get away. You see my mess and all my mistakes, and you love me still. And though I may waver, 'cause I am convinced that you never change. I can't outrun your love. 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 'Cause you love me when I'm up. You love me when I'm down. Your love, it surrounds me. I can't get away. You love me when I'm lost. You love me till I'm found. Your love, it surrounds me. I can't get away. I've been to the bottom, I've been to the top. I can run away and love will never stop. You're with me in the morning, in the dead of night. You're not leaving, no. I've been to the bottom, I've been to the top. But I can run away and love will never stop. You're with me in the morning, in the dead of night. You're not leaving. Lift that up, SouthBrook. I've been to the bottom, I've been to the top. But I can run away and love will never stop. With me in the morning, in the dead of night. You're not leaving. So I'm not leaving. No, you're not leaving. So I'm not leaving. Oh, you love me.
You love me when I'm up.
You love me.
You love me when I'm down.
Your love, it surrounds me. I can't get away. 'Cause you love me.
You love me when I'm lost. You love me till I'm found.
'Cause your love, it surrounds me. I can't get away. No, I can't get away. I've been to the bottom, I've been to the top. I can run away and love will never stop. With me in the morning, in the dead of night. You're not leaving, no. I've been to the bottom, I've been to the top. I can run away and love will never stop. With me in the morning, in the dead of night. You're not leaving, no.
Your eyes are on the road, though others look away. Your feet are until they're broken. Your hands are quick to save. Make us like you, Lord. You walk with the forgotten and offer them a home, adopting the unwanted and calling them your own. Make us like you,
into the dark. Oh, give us your heart. Oh, give us your heart. All to see your kingdom come and death depart. Oh, give us your heart. Oh, give us your heart. You walk with the forgotten and offer them home, adopting the unwanted and calling them your own. Oh, make us like you, Lord. Make us like you. Make us like you, Lord. Oh, give us your heart. Oh, give us your heart. Let the light of heaven shine as we step into the dark. Oh, give us your heart. Oh, give us your heart. All to see your kingdom come and death depart. Oh, give us your heart. Oh, give us your heart. Let justice flow like a river in the desert. Let the nations know that you reign forever as the earth beholds the glory of the Savior. Let justice flow. Let justice flow like a river in the desert. Let the nations know that you reign forever as the earth beholds the glory of the Savior. Let justice flow. Oh, give us your heart. Oh, give us your heart. Let the light of heaven shine as we step into the dark. Oh, give us your heart. Oh, give us your heart. Let the light of heaven shine as we step into the dark. Oh, give us your heart. Oh, give us your heart. Want to see your kingdom come and let's depart. Oh, give us your
Dear Lord, I thank you for letting us come here together and worship you. I thank you for giving us your heart, to say the least. In your name I pray, amen. You may have a seat.
We're glad you're here. Hopefully you are too. We're about to get weird. You're probably already sensing something weird's happening. There's a fire. It's not real. That's right. I just want to comfort you that it's not a real fire. Now, if you can't just kind of go with me, I want you to travel back in time to your childhood, and let's say maybe you were grounded. Or maybe you had to be at your grandma's house for like what felt like forever. And finally, you're back, you're free to play. And what did you do? Probably if you're like me, you went around door to door and you looked around to see if there were any co-conspirators in the neighborhood that day, right? And you knock on all your favorite people's door, and then you knock on that other kid's door just in case, because nobody's home. Do you remember that feeling? Like you're rared to play, you're free, you're finally gonna run in the field or play basketball or ride the skateboard or whatever. You're finally free, and none of your friends are around. I would venture to guess that we probably have that feeling in our bones, and that probably wasn't the last time we felt it. That there are days as an adult where you find yourself with free time, or you find yourself needing the company of other people, but it seems like nobody's really around for you. There was a sociological review study that said they asked all these people how many people you have that you can trust and rely on. And in 1985, that answer was 2.94, right? It's a little like how you can have half a kid. In the average family, they have half a kid, right? But you can have 2.94 friends. And then by 2004, that number had dropped down to less than 2. Now, I would imagine if you tested people post-COVID, not with a COVID test, but with a friendship test, that a lot of people, it would come up even less, right? Because at least one of the things that I know I've experienced in the people I know and just in the circles I listen to is that we've experienced this, like, we had to prioritize family, we had to make our way through, we had to survive, we had our jobs changed, and maybe some of your friendships kind of fell by the wayside, and now you're kind of knocking on all the doors, and none of your friends are around. We were talking about this in a staff meeting, and Leah Sparling said she read somewhere that they were using the word friendships, right, which is different than friendship, right? It's where everything changes on you. And a lot of us have felt that way over the last few years. Friendship has dropped in priority, but I want us to hear the reason why we're a little kid and we go around and knock on all the doors is because we are built for each other. And the reason I know that is because even Jesus needed friends. And maybe you think of like the 12 disciples, we sometimes talk about them like they're his friends, but there were these other relationships he had where he didn't ask as much of them. If you think about the story of Mary and Martha, these two sisters, and then they had a brother named Lazarus, Jesus would just come in between doing big, giant, important things. He would just come and hang out at their house. And he never said, I need you guys to go preach the gospel in all these nations. He never asked very much of them. He just asked for them to be a place of rest for him. And so Jesus himself was not above needing friends around. He was not above knocking on doors. Now, I have this theory that for friendship to happen, and this is not, you probably have this theory too, this is not super smart, but that all friendship requires a few roles. One of the roles is that there has to be somebody who's an inviter, right? Somebody has to be the first one to say, let's do this thing together, right? And especially as adults, that becomes like loaded with insecurities and friendship entanglements, and we do math on who owes who and invite, right? But somebody has to be the vulnerable, will you do this thing with me? And then there has to be somebody who plays the role of the shower-upper, right? That's my scientific name for it. The shower-upper, the person who says yes to the invitation, right? And then I think there's this third person. We won't say that there's a third role of the people who don't show up. We'll just call them wild cards. Because there's a third role. That's the people who you don't know for sure if they're going to come to the party you throw, but when they do, you're glad they're there. And maybe you have friendship like that where you don't talk for 5 years, but when you do, it's worth it. They're a wild card. They surprise you sometimes. And what I would argue is that in different roles, sometimes you might be the inviter, sometimes you might be the person who just waits, but then you do show up, and sometimes you're probably the wild card. And I want us to just think about what happens in us. How are we formed and shaped when we play those different roles? And how do we kind of lay down our pride to be those things for each other? Now, it would be silly for me to just stand up here and talk about friendship all by myself. So I brought friends, and they're here, and this is them, and we're going to have a campfire today. I think we have campfires. Do you hear the crickets? Are they? I can't tell if they're flying or not. There's supposed to be crickets out there. All right, so this is our campfire setting. Hopefully you guys are all nice and cozy. We are going to do a thing that I've talked about before called cups and questions. Everybody's got cups. I got some questions. Now, Olivia's over here. Olivia is our student pastor. She is my friend, and we share Tennessee roots. And also, she's been doing cups and questions with students, right? You've done this a few times. Mm-hmm. Tell us, what is cups and questions? You hold cups, and then what do you do?
We hold cups, we ask questions. They start with more mild questions, easy entry, and then they gradually become more serious and about faith and identity and belonging.
Right. And so we're going to play cups and questions and just see how this goes. And you're doing that with students. Sean Case is here, who is our executive pastor, if you don't know him. He is also my boss, but sometimes we manage to be friends also. So that's fun. He also is living that you're about to have an empty nest, right?
20 more days.
20 more days, not that he's counting. And you've also survived, just remember, you don't have a microphone right now, but you've survived friendship in Springboro athletics, right? Which can't be super easy.
Mildly scarred.
Yeah.
But no, it was good.
Yeah, you moved all your kids through Springboro sports.
Yes.
And come out still with a few friendships left.
And a little bit of money.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, they take it all from you, right?
As they should.
And then my oldest friend at SouthBrook, maybe, is Jason Johnston, who's here with us. He leads Bog Ministries. If you don't know about Bog, they're housed here. They're one of our ministry partners, and they host. Yeah, Bog gets a little hand clap. Yeah, if you're looking for a way to volunteer, they do mobile food pantries all over Dayton, and we go way, way back, right? You want to show them your cup, your cool Bog cup?
Yeah, Laura said, you can wear a Bog shirt. And I said, when you have color-changing glasses, we're supposed to hold a cup, extra ice.
Yeah, because the cups and questions, because my friend Ashley says that people are more honest when they hold a cup. So we're going to see if you can displace your nervous energy about answering the question if you're holding a cup. So also, if you need to, we have not, but you can fill the cups with things that also make you more honest. But we just have coffee. And the student ministry, it's just, soda, right?
Nobody's checked the cups, though.
Nobody's checked the cups. So who knows what? All right, so we're going to start with a warm-up. I just want to get us thinking about friendship. You all are playing cups and questions with us, so answer this as we go. Do you guys have a favorite friendship in a movie or TV show? Like a favorite friendship that comes to your mind?
I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there. The Goonies, right? We all know the Goondocks.
Yeah, that's a good movie friendship, yeah. There's all kinds of dynamics there. I don't remember, there's Data, there's Sean Astin, it's Our Time Down Here. That's a good one.
And it's our time.
Yeah.
Right here.
It's our time right here, yeah.
So during rehearsal, it was established that I'm the official old guy on the stage. So I said Ponch and John from Chips, and Olivia, right? You guys are as old as me. So when I was younger, my best friend at the time, we used to watch on Wednesday nights, and then we were going to grow up and be motorcycle cops in California together. So that was the first of many dreams that were not realized. But.
Now, I might not know who Shauna's talking about, but my answer is the staffers in the show The West Wing.
Okay.
Those are my favorite friendships.
And did you come up with any favorite dynamic there? You got Josh and Toby, Sam and Josh. Any favorite?
Josh is my favorite because he is just sarcastic.
Okay.
But Josh and Toby, that banter where they call each other out when they need it, but then they also are there for each other. My favorite.
Yeah, I like to watch West Wing and pretend they're my friends because I think it's neat that everybody's following a script, right? That's maybe the advantage that they have to friendship, is that we often don't have scripts. My favorite that came to my mind is Leslie Knope and Ron Swanson. If you've ever seen that show, Leslie is this like over-eager like just loves everybody too much, and Ron Swanson will only admit that she is his workplace proximity associate because he's a tough guy with a mustache and builds his own canoes, and that's my favorite. All right.
That's such a good answer.
It is a good answer.
I'm glad
That's
you
the
didn't
right
share
answer.
that when we talked earlier.
It's the only right answer. So think about your favorite, and what is it that you like about him, right? I like just the dynamic that in the real world it would be really hard for Leslie and Ron to be friends probably, but in a scripted world, they find their way towards each other is kind of the thing I like about them. So, all right, second question. This came from a tweet, so, and I won't tell you who wrote it, but a man lives in a cave and never meets another soul. For his whole life, he is blissfully happy until his sudden and painless death. Is this a good life? This is the part where you guys answer.
All this jump in
All right.
and say, yes.
Okay.
If you are well and the world is well and you are giving to it, ignorance is bliss sometimes.
That's true. He doesn't know what he's missing is one argument, yeah. Anybody else? Counter argument?
I think that's a horrible answer. Although I think my wife might agree with you that would be good. But no, I think we were created for a relationship, and I think that's how we learn and grow. So yeah, I think it would be maybe empty. But then again, if you didn't know what empty was, then maybe I'm sticking with mine.
Olivia?
I'm going to come somewhere in the middle of where, on one hand, it matters about what's important to you. Like, he sounded like he lived a good life, but we also are intended to live in community, and with that comes pain, but then there's also nuance and beauty that comes with being known by people.
Yeah. Anybody would say that's a good life? Anybody that sounds all right to you? Yeah, a few loners, yeah?
Boy, you guys are making me feel awkward up here.
Jason, who's also happily married with 2 kids and has a good family, and yeah, you don't live on an island.
It's also good.
Yeah. Has anybody seen the show Alone? If you haven't watched it, have you guys seen it? It's like Survivor, but for real. These people are thrown out into the wilderness with a certain number of tools. They have cameras, and they have to basically survive in the wilderness of Canada all by themselves. And they have to make their own shelter. They have to hunt. It's on the History Channel. It's been, for some reason, really comforting to me to watch during COVID, even though it's the most distressing show. But what's fascinating is that these are like people who do this, like most of them are professional survivalists who do wilderness expeditions all the time. But at least half of them end up leaving because of loneliness. Because they are even people who are like, show up on the first day like, I'm not, because they can win $1 million. So they're like, I'm not going home until I win that $1 million. And 10 days in, they're like, I miss my kids, I miss my mom, I gotta go home. And it's a good answer to this, maybe, that there's parts of solitude that make us feel good, but there is something in us that eventually might want other people around. All right, third question. Did a friend ever talk you into doing something that you wouldn't have tried on your own? For better or worse? And I should say we did not rehearse our answers, so I don't know what's about to happen.
And we all know we have something to say on this one.
Yeah.
No, I was the friend that talked people into things.
Okay.
To the point, oftentimes my siblings would just blame me for whatever they did. So instead of getting in trouble, my parents just believed it because there was evidence that was probably true.
You were the instigator.
Absolutely.
Okay, tell us one thing. What'd you talk your sister into doing?
You knew it was my sister. There was one time when I was in elementary school that I got my sister to lock herself in the bathroom, but my parents didn't have a key. Don't know what I was doing, but it ended up with my parents debating whether or not they were gonna call the fire department, and my brother like climbing in from the window to let my sister out of the bathroom. So don't know what she did to deserve that punishment, but it was probably fair. And
I had a sister who made me eat dog biscuits, so I understand that. I understand that sister dynamic.
Older
They're
sisters.
not good, guys. Don't eat dog biscuits. Sean?
I feel like that's kind of my job with Charlie. He talks me into a lot of things. Like, I don't know if we should, but he's usually right. But no, I was in a fraternity, so I got lots of those stories.
Okay.
But probably the one of the more regrettable ones that I didn't talk about on stage is my first senior year of college. I had a couple. We there were several of us that moved out to an apartment complex, and we were next door. Some of our best friends. This is going to be great. And the first week of school, one side of the apartment, the ones next to us, thought, wouldn't it be really cool if we made an opening between the two apartments? And we did, and we did not get in trouble for it. No, I mean, the landlords never came around, but when it came time to move out, I was the only one with skills that could put it back together. And all the people talked me into this, they were nowhere to be found. So yeah, I was definitely talked into that one.
Yeah, you tear a lot of walls down around here, so it's good to know you have some experience with that.
It all started there, I'm sure.
Yeah, nice. Jason?
I like it. So this is something I didn't think about. Actually, my kids are here, and just last week, so I grew up in Wisconsin, and I took my family, we went on a road trip to Wisconsin the last couple weeks, and there was this little lake down the road from the house that I grew up in, and I was with a couple friends, and it was still like ice on the middle of the pond type of thing, and I had a friend say, hey, I bet you can't swim across the lake. Well, Wisconsin is a lot colder than Ohio in the spring. And I said, and back then they said, I'll give you $100. Well, in, I don't know, 94, $100 for a middle school kid?
Yeah.
Oh man, like what couldn't we buy? And so I said, well, I can definitely swim across that lake. Well, Connor, don't do this. That's why I didn't tell you this last week. But I jumped in the water. One, friends talk you into it.
Right?
Two, who doesn't want to be the kid that swims through the ice and almost drowns and then has to ride his bike home and didn't think about like, oh, water temperature. And then I get home and I'm like soaking wet and my mom is like, what are you doing? I said, well, I just earned $100. Like, isn't it awesome? Like, look at this. And she's like, that's my $100 because that $100 went to pay for your funeral. So learn a lesson. No, I'm not washing your clothes. Figure out how to wash them and take a hot shower and you're also grounded.
Yeah.
And it was like,
Kind of put a damper on your glory
it
there.
was a real bummer, right? Because the worst part is the other kid didn't pay me. So then my mom called his mom and was like, Kyle owes Jason $100 extra, and I'm keeping it. And I was like, really, as a parent, you know, she was just trying to break that friendship. Didn't work, you know. Didn't work. I just hung out with them 31 years later, a couple weekends ago.
Nice. I like your Deb impression. She's got a real deep voice in your impression there.
Yeah. In my mind, my mom was.
She's got some strength behind her. Yeah. All right. So your story, I actually had a bad one where like the first time I cussed was because a friend made me. Because I grew up in church thinking that lightning would strike me if I cussed. It wasn't Jason. It was a long, long time ago. Her name was Rachel, and she wanted me to say one of the big 4-letter ones. And I don't know, she just pressured me into it, so I just screamed it. I can't.
I
Charlie
always
might be
spell it
watching
with my
on the-
kids
my
because
boss is right there.
then people don't know what you're saying if you spell it.
I'm not going to spell it. I honestly can't remember, but it was a bad one. And I didn't feel any better after it. But I also ran a marathon because friends made me, right? So that's just to bring out that thing, right? There's a lot of things in us that we do for better or worse. You guys are up here because I made you, right? For better or worse. We're seeing how it goes. All right. Now, you were telling an old story, right? Like a childhood friend that you're still friends with. And we were even talking the other week about there's something about childhood friendships that's simpler or easier. It's just, and even if you stay in touch with people, there's an ease to old friends as opposed to the new friends where you have to do that math of invitation and whose turn is it to call and well, they liked my text last. I don't know if I'm supposed to text back. Like, you don't have to do that with old friends. Tell us, what are some differences between your childhood friendships and the friendships you make as adults? What have you guys noticed are some of those? What's different?
Well, I'll just jump in it since we're playing
You
off
got the
that.
mic, yeah.
So it is that. I hung out with a friend 2 weeks ago with his family and our family, and we've been friends for 31 years. We were neighbors, and we broke away to go pick some extra chocolate up for s'mores. And we were just talking and reminiscing on the goods and the bads, and you know, he looked at me and he said, "You are the same person you've always been." You know, and then it made me think, because when I moved to Ohio, I have a long list of things that you would all go, "Wait, what?" And some of you in this room know some of those because you've known me a long time.
How did you come to church? Tell them just how you first got to SouthBrook.
I made some bad choices, and a PD department said, "You should," and then a judge said, "You probably should do some community service." And I kind of said, "Hey, you guys think you'd let me do it here?" So that is when we met. So I might have opened the door for you like 18 years ago, and I had long hair.
Yeah, one more hour.
That's
yeah,
it. That's it.
Putting in one more hour here.
But I think what's neat in that is, right, I've changed a lot in 31 years. But to him, right, I've always the nature. Because I said, "What do you mean by that?" To me, I'm a very different person. And he said, "You've always been a person, right, that I can trust. You've always been a person that's cared about me. You've always been a person that's intentional. And no matter like what you have said or done in those years, or the distance between us, you are still the person that I've known that we play football with in the backyard, you know, or try to hide cigarette stubs in pop cans and then throw them in the kitchen trash can because, one, we didn't recycle back then, and two, why would I think a cigarette filter would stink up the whole kitchen of a non-smoking house? But I think there's,
Connor.
but I think there's something like unique in the fashion of to that you asked is, it is this trust. It's real, and that's why I think even to my answer to the tweet is, you don't know what you're missing, right? Like I have a 4 and a 7-year-old. They don't know what they're missing until we or the world tells them they're missing it. And I think there's something in that rooted relationship where we've known each other for 18 years or so.
Yeah.
And we've gotten to that point, right?
Yeah.
Where we can say hard things, and we've had lots of laughs, but we've had a lot of hard things. But it takes that journey. And I think when you're kids, right, 31 years, I didn't have to explain what my last 2 years have looked like. I can give the highlight reel or the low light reel. And it's because it doesn't matter, right? The relationship is there, the love is there. And so I just think we have so many filters of what needs to be a friend these days.
Yeah.
Because we're so worried about what ifs.
Yeah.
What if I say this and,
Yeah.
man, 18 years, Jason says, I don't want to be a friend anymore.
Yeah.
Like, that's not real.
Yeah, some of it I wonder if it's just proximity too. Like when you're a kid, you just are friends with who's nearby. But when you're grown up, it does take this work. I was thinking the other day about how grown-up friendships, it's almost just conversation. Like you may have friends that you join a basketball league or you join like a crafting club or something, but a lot of grown-up friendship puts all this pressure on just sitting and just talking, right? I don't know, does that make sense? But like there's something about kid friendships where you are playing together and you're in life together, whereas adult friendships, it's like you have to make extra time, which you don't always have, and you have to sit across the table and come up with who to be across the table, which you don't have to fake that when you're a kid. Do you guys have anything difference between adults and kid friendships?
Yeah, I agree with the childhood proximity friendships, and in my experience, those friendships weren't very deep. I grew up in Oregon and don't have a ton of those friends from childhood, but a lot of the friends that I made in college and seminary, where those friendships were based off of our shared experience and our shared values, have been a lot deeper and sustained through friends moving across the globe or me moving to another state. And those are the friendships for me that it doesn't matter if we talk in 6 months or if most of our communication is through text. Like, those are the ones that are deeper and more sustainable.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a very small town, 2,000 people, which at the time it seemed huge. And my sisters and like everybody from my family, I'm the one who moved away. They still live there. So when I was like from birth through age 12, we lived in a neighborhood, which in a town that size was like 11 houses. But there were kids at all different ages, so you just had to go outside, and somebody was there to play. And I remember some of my best memories are like Friday nights, like kids when I was like 7 and all the way up to 18, 19 years old. We played capture the flag. It just felt like that neighborhood was an adventure. And then when I was 12, my parents moved out to the country, and all of a sudden, it was me and my two sisters. So, and it was almost not like the end of my childhood, that's too dramatic, but all of a sudden it was like lonely, and I had to, like, if I wanted to play with somebody, it had to be coordinated. And I look back, and like I said, my family's still there, so I still know what's going on with all their kids, and it's just those people in my life, from the parents to the kids, I want to say it's just a little more special. And I think one of the things that taught me is friendships can happen in proximity. And I think some of my closest friends now are just because of unrelated circumstances where we were forced to spend time together. Like, I don't go out and go, oh, I want to be that person's friend. How can I make that happen? I think it's just a matter of going back to what's earlier. I think we were made for community, and when we open ourselves up to some degree, I think with time and space, some really cool things can happen.
Yeah, because that invitation doesn't always have to be, come go do this thing with me. Sometimes the invitation is just a spirit, right? It's a spirit of, I'm game to talk about how your life is while we're watching our kids at practice or whatever. It's the, I had some friends who live by this rule of, if you feel like being at a party, throw one. And you and Jenny, I think, kind of live by that rule a little bit. Like, if you feel like being at a party, throw one. And I think sometimes that's the literal party, and sometimes that's just the way you move through the world, is with an open stance towards the people that you're around. Now, I don't know, I won't throw this question to everybody, but I did want to, one of the questions was just, have you ever had a friendship breakup? And you probably all give me everybody have, I think especially, well, everybody raise your hand how many friends you've lost over the last, no, just kidding, that was a joke, you guys didn't. I thought people would laugh at that. Could we get the crickets going? I think I've been reading about this, how with friendship, there's no ritual around it, right? Like, when you're talking about like meeting people at a sporting event, or meeting people at work or whatever, meeting people at a happy hour, there's no ritual around either making friends or breaking friends. Whereas like with dating and marriage, we bring the lawyers in, right? There's rituals we go through, but sometimes with friendship, it becomes this, what they call ambiguous loss, where there's no closure, you just ghost each other, or you let it fade, or you just don't take care of it. And what I have noticed with people is that that can cause like a deep pain and a shame that we all kind of walk around with, and we don't know what to do. And you see them at the grocery store, and you go out of your way to not see them or run into them. And anybody got stories about this? You want to talk us through? Have you felt any of that shame around friendship breakup? Anybody?
Yeah, I can say that one thing I think that I pride myself on, if I want to use that word, is I want everybody I meet to like me, not because I need you to like me, because I want to find a way to meet you where you're at. Mm-hmm. I want to be a friend to you, right? Because I think there's something great in knowing different people and recognizing we can agree to disagree. You know, like Sean and Laura, we've known each other equal times. I spent a lot less time with Sean than I have with Laura. And I think somewhere in that is I'm good to give myself away because I want that. Mm-hmm. And so I've had friends that, especially in the last 10 years, major their character is no longer is something that I want to adapt or give myself away to. Because for me to abandon a friendship, there has to be a core or a value of someone that I go, I don't even want 1% of that, because it's something that is going to make me the worst version of me.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
we've been through it, haven't we? I mean, Jason and I both of our moms were diagnosed with dementia right around the same time, and so we have found through that, like, and you know this, when you go through a crisis, there are the people who show up, and then there are the people who don't, right? And so you do have to be more careful. Sometimes that ends a friendship if you can't see each other the same way after you experience them that way. There's a person who writes about grief who says that every loss rearranges your address book, and that's an old-fashioned saying that won't make sense in 5 years, but I think we know what that means, right? Like, when you go through something, a divorce or a remarriage or some shift, you do lose people through that journey, but then there are the people who show up, right? And so maybe there's some filters that happen where the people who stick around are the people for us. I think what we want to say too is that we're formed in friendship, the choices we make, because we do become who our friends are. So Olivia, you want to give us like your best answer to this last question? How does friendship, how could it make us more like Jesus, right? If it's a part of what it means to be a person, how could it make us more like Jesus to craft friendships?
So there is a theologian named Kat Armis, and she wrote that there's a huge difference between, hi, welcome, and you belong here and you have a purpose in this community. And she talks about how Jesus often communicates the latter, that there is an invitation to belong in the community, to know the community and be known by the community, and to participate in God's work in the world. And I find that a really helpful lens as we ask, how do friendships make us look more like Jesus? Because we do become who we surround ourselves by. And while hi and welcome is familiar, it doesn't cost a lot from us. It makes us feel like we're doing a lot. Jesus's ethic, especially in the New Testament, is more of scooting over and making room. It required sacrifice on his part, and Jesus always showed that there was a place for everyone in the community, and that the table always had space for more people. He's not one of exclusion. We often look at him inviting himself to people's houses and inviting other people to other people's houses, and the people that he surrounded himself with weren't the most desirable people in society. I mean, think of Zacchaeus, who was known for ripping people off, or Matthew, who was a tax collector. And I mean, he even invited the disciples to follow him without even really knowing them. A lot of that was him just saying, nope, you belong here. You're invited into this community, into this work. And he was also the type of friend who didn't keep score. He didn't keep a record of who was the most faithful, or who had the biggest wrongs against him. I mean, if you think about Judas, he was still invited to dinner and still had his feet washed when Jesus knew he was hours from being betrayed by Judas. And we also think about Peter and how Peter betrayed Jesus too by denying him 3 times. And he was still entrusted with good work and still given grace. And if you think again about Thomas, who believed the resurrection was just too good to be true, Jesus didn't go, well, you didn't have enough faith. Like, what are you, dumb? Like, he included him in that space and showed him grace. So I think if we follow Jesus' ethic of scooting over and making room, even if it's awkward, and by not keeping a record of what the people in our lives do against us, then we'll be more like Jesus tomorrow than we were today.
Yeah, and I think that's an important note for us to end the boring series on, because we're going to start next week. Charlie will be back for this jungle living series where we talk about going from boring to wild. And a part of that is we're leading into a baptism Sunday where we're going to be encouraging you to invite folks along, right? And I think what it means to be a friend is to be grace in a body to people. That's at least one of the things Jesus is, right? He's grace in a body, and he calls his church to be grace in a body. And so, however that looks in our workplace proximity associates, or the people on the field with us, or the people who we've known since we were little kids in the neighborhood, like, the goal is for us to be grace as the Church of Jesus. I want to just finish this series. I don't know if you've noticed that I have 2 watches on, and maybe you just thought I was really cool. But we've talked in this series really about how we pay attention and about our presence and what it means to be intentional and on purpose with our daily life. And this watch is like an Apple Watch that was a gift, and it judges me a lot. If you have one of these, it judges you for not standing or doing enough or being on, tells you your screen time every Sunday. I feel a lot of judgment and calculation from this watch. So I wanted to balance it out with, I ordered this off of, I don't know if you've seen this, it's been featured on NPR. It's big on TikTok, ironically. It's a watch that doesn't tell time. It's ducks. It's little magnetic ducks in there. And so you can decide what time it is, right? Like, it's either actually 10:28 or it's just time to watch ducks. And I say that to say, I think I'm going somewhere. I got a point. I believe the kingdom of heaven has both, like, there is a time element to it, right? We only have so many days. We talked about teach us to count our days so we gain a wise heart. But there also has to be people where we just lose track of time with them. There has to be things we do during our day or prayers. There has to be maybe at church we lose track of time. We have to, like, I don't know what time it is. It's just duck time. And for me, that's really literal. I'm not trying to, like, make a big weird emotional switch here, but that is my specialty. In the early days of the pandemic, we had just put, both my parents officially were on hospice, and it's pandemic days, all the restaurants are closed. It feels like the world is just crushing in, and one day I just said, let's just go watch ducks. And so, I got him into the car really carefully, and we went to the park, and we just watched ducks. And I don't know how long we did it, but I think the kingdom of heaven is like that sometimes. And to fight the despair of not enough time for all the things, or not enough time for friendship, or losing ourselves in the latest Netflix binge, like, I think we have to get good at losing time, and we need each other, I think, to do that. So we're going to close out this series with a prayer. We've been using the prayers from Paul's letters a lot in this series. Pete and Eric both used them in their messages. I'm going to end with a prayer for us. This comes from the first chapter of Philippians. Let's pray together. Like Paul, God, there are people who every time we think of them, we end up thanking you for them. Right now, God, with joy, we think of the people who have made us laugh, who have made us try something new. We think of the people who have invited us and who have shown up for us. God, we believe that when you start good works, you finish them. So it's our prayer that whatever good work you may be starting in us right now, there's somewhere more for us to go. God, you are our witness, how we care for this community, and we want to fill it with the compassion of Jesus. It is our prayer that our love would overflow more and more with knowledge and insight, that we will know what is best, and that on the day of Christ, we will eventually be pure and blameless, that we will have the kind of righteousness that comes from spending time with you and with each other in your glory. In Jesus' name we pray for all this. Amen.
Come tend the soil of my soul, and like a garden